My history with Neostrata actually dates all the way back to the Stone Age in the 1990s when I was running a plastic surgery clinic on New York's Park Avenue. It was very early days, and Neostrata was the brand that we brought into the practice, and we sold a lot of it. And I was training our nurses who were very adverse to actually selling skincare, and it actually took off. And the Neostrata people at the time would come and visit, like, why are you selling so much skincare? They didn't even have so much as brochures. So look at you today. It's really been interesting to watch the journey of Neostrata into such an unbelievable global brand, and still very prominently positioned in the skincare world. So I am going to give you some of my insights, and I hope that you can pick up some pearls that may help you in your own clinics as to how to sell skincare and how to sell skincare in what I consider a very ethical and very appropriate way without being a real salesman, which I don't think is a strategy that works particularly well, especially not in this market. So if you want your patients to have great skin, definitely need to offer professional skincare. That really works, and you've got a brand that obviously has clinical data more than most brands, so you've got the right brand that they can't get everywhere else. I think that's really a key. A lot of doctors, I feel like I need to dance. A lot of doctors, are really averse to selling brands that you can get on the high street, and I think that that's a mistake for your clinic. If you really want to position yourself as a proper skincare clinic with skincare expertise that patients can't get at a Boots or can't get at a Selfridges, you're in the right place. And lastly, you need to teach them how to use it, because we all know what patients are like in terms of compliance. And I don't assume that they actually know how to use it. I think that's really part of the reason why they're coming to you as skin experts, to show them, well, this is really right for your skin, and this is how you should use it, and to use it consistently so they really can reap the rewards. So, successful selling. I mean, I'm sure that you're all very successful in your own right and don't need to know this, but I'm just going to reiterate why it's so important to offer skincare today in any aesthetic practice and even medical derm practice. It adds value and profit. It's a retail vertical for your practice, which we all need. And even if a patient walks in the door and isn't ready or can't afford to have an injectable treatment or a laser treatment, or for any plastic surgeons who may be in the room, a surgical process, everybody needs skincare. Everybody needs an SPF, and at the minimum, that's what they need to walk out the door with. Everybody needs some form of a treatment product, and everybody's got a skincare concern that they're willing to put a product on to help them with. Acne being a huge one, rosacea being another one, and brown and reds and everything else that factors into aging skin. I also think there's a huge opportunity for you as clinicians in optimizing and accelerating the outcomes that you're achieving already within the clinic with lasers and other techniques. And I think that's probably some of the better selling products that I see in our world, are the products that weave in very seamlessly with the treatments that you're already offering. Definitely differentiates your clinic from every other toxin and filler clinic, and there are an awful lot of them, certainly in the UK market and throughout every market I go to in Europe. Not to mention the US, they're dotting. I mean, every little nail salon in my neighborhood in New York has like a sign in the window that's handwritten and says, "We sell skincare too." No expertise in skincare, so you want to differentiate yourself for those customers. And it also attracts a new customer base that may not be coming to you in the first place, and brings them in the door. I think if you can start a client on skincare, it's very easy to migrate them into some of the other treatments you offer. So patient satisfaction drives a lot of revenue. It's a great source of repeat revenue. But you need to facilitate that so that they don't come to you, buy one product, and then go elsewhere to buy another product. And again, a lot of that has to do with constant communication, which we don't have time to cover today, but keeping in touch with those patients and letting them know what's new in the clinic. And every time Neostrata has another launch, letting your patients know, we've got something new to share with you. Come in, let us show you what a retinol peel will do. Happy patients also are vocal. What's better than a woman feeling great about her skin and goes to lunch with a girlfriend or someone at work and, wow, you're looking good. What have you done? And it isn't an injection. well, I had this peel, or I'm using a new skincare regime. The word of mouth factor in cosmeceutical selling cannot be overestimated. It's huge. And especially in an age where user-generated content and women talking to other women are the new influencers. And that's such an important thing to talk to your patients about. People are willing to talk about their skincare much more so than they're willing to talk about having injections done or having breast implants. So this is something that there really is no stigma about. You're using great skincare, my skin looks great because of it. That's something they're willing to talk about on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else. And a satisfied customer, if you treat them well, and again, you keep that loyalty there, will be a customer for life. So what's different about the skincare market today? I just wrote a very big feature for Prime that should be out in the next week or so about the new skincare market, and there are an awful lot of new launches and a lot of trends. I think it helps you to become an expert in your field by knowing what the trends are. Read consumer magazines as well as medical journals, so that when your customers come to you and ask you a question, position yourself as the expert in this area. Rather than going to a counter somewhere on the high street or in a department store, they need to come to you as their skincare professional to find out, what's this I read in the Daily Mail about this, this new product, is that any good? You need to keep up with what your patients are reading, which can be a full-time job sometimes. When I ran a practice, I would assign roles in the practice, like, you read women's magazines, you take a look at these journals. So we would all sort of share information, so we were very up to date. Actives and systems play a key role. Systems, I think, are really well entrenched in the consumer domain now. And I think it's so important not to sell them a product. You're selling them a lifestyle regime. It isn't just one product, because they can get one product anywhere. What's different about you as skincare professionals is that you are their go-to person, and you know when they need to step it up a bit. And, wow, this isn't working anymore for you because we need to take it to the next level, or introduce a peel process in there, or a laser, or a combination therapy. And as an expert, you're better positioned to do that. The new crop of influence, I can't say this enough, are real people. They're not always celebrities. They are real people. They're like everyday, average people who talk to each other and talk about what's working for them, and very active on social media. And all of you have influencers within your clinic that you should be tapping into. So what do patients want? They want help. They want to sort through the confusion because they're inundated with messages, with ads popping up at them on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. It's incestuous now. They really want someone to cut through that confusion for them, and I think you're positioned to do that in a unique way. They may go to a clinic for on the high street, but they might not know where to get their skincare, and not every clinic is selling skincare, which I think is a big disconnect. And then there's the difference between the sort of quasi-science brands that you see available at retail or available online. What you ultimately want to do is prevent your clients and customers from going online and purchasing products that are all over the internet. Even on Facebook, ads come up for brands that are supposed to be professionally dispensed all the time. And the way to do that, again, is education. And make that connection and that relationship with the client and make it long-term. Don't think short-term. You want to keep them within the practice. So the right staff. I think it's essential to have the right staff in terms of selling skincare, and whether that's an esthetician or yourself as a practitioner, or have a nurse who's able to do it, or someone who just loves skincare that you can educate. But there has to be someone there who's actually taking responsibility for selling the skincare. Sometimes I'll go into clinics and you'll see, there's sort of a quasi thought through few eye creams, and maybe there's a little cabinet, but it's empty, or the testers are dusty, or it doesn't look very appealing. That is so not good enough today. You need to make an investment within your clinic to display products properly, make it enticing, make it interesting. While a patient waits, there should be something in the waiting room for her to look at. Oh, what's this? Not only literature, but actually touching and feeling those products. It's so important today. It's kind of like the retail model that Sephora has, where there are testers everywhere, and it's a beautiful environment. Who doesn't want to go into a Sephora? I know you don't have one in London yet. Or Ulta is like the ultimate store in the US. I wish there was an Ulta in Manhattan. There isn't yet, but there will be, I'm sure, at some point. But these retailers have done this right, and I would urge you to take your cues from some of the retailers out there who are selling skincare and beauty products and really know how to attract that customer, because that customer is your customer too. The clinic staff needs to be trained, and I think Neostrata does this brilliantly, and I think Aesthetic Source, if I'm not mistaken, won some awards for being the best vendor. Training is really critical because new technologies come out all the time. Neostrata has a lot of different launches that is good to keep up on, so you're able to explain a product and answer a question in a way that they can't get at every little nail salon or hair salon in their town. And commission bonus structure, I know that's sometimes a red flag in this market, but I believe, at least in the US, and we're going to talk to our panel about this too, that skincare selling should be commissioned for someone who that's a part of their income and part of their package, and I think it actually can work to everyone's advantage. Product selection is important, but I believe in packages. I mean, think about who your patients are and what are their skincare needs, and that may vary tremendously from practice to practice. It doesn't mean you have to have every single SKU in your clinic, but you have to have a wide enough range. I mean, everyone deals with skin of color, because it would be almost impossible not to. Because, I mean, people are people, and you all see a wide range of people, even if you're in a little village in the south of England. So keep that in mind, that you may be overlooking a category that's important to have on board. And packages, I think, should be created so that they're easy for a patient to understand, and that it encourages them to come back to the clinic for a checkup and a top-up and a replenishment. And you definitely want to encourage them to replenish through you. So product service menus. Tying in products with your services is critical. I think it's great to be able to send a patient home with a product to use for, like, let's say you're doing a IPL treatment. You send them home with whatever the appropriate product is for their skin type, even if it's just a sunscreen. Here, I need you to use this. You need to wear this for 6 weeks. Come back and let me check you. There's a continuous relationship. You're not just letting them take their product or have their treatment and go away. There's a reason for them to come back, and it can just be, let me check your skin, because that touch point is so important with the patient. They know they can come back to you and trust you, and bringing them back into the practice. Even if they can't come back into the practice within a certain time frame, a phone call, a live chat. I use Skype all the time. Skype is great if it's an out-of-town patient, but stay in touch with that patient. That's the way to keep them under your roof instead of going to somewhere else. And take-home products for maintenance is critical today. I think clinics that don't do this are missing such a tremendous opportunity. And also, it's a service for the patient. It's not only good for you, but it's really what patients want. So let me give you a couple of thoughts about successful selling. Consumers need products that work quickly and reliably. So ultimately, we want them to have skin that not only looks healthy, behaves healthy, but also feels healthy, that they can relate to. And there is nothing better than getting a compliment from your husband or significant other or partner or people at work, and that translates so vividly. They want ingredients that enhance their treatments. Whether that's a vitamin C after a laser or an SPF with some minerals in it. It's so important to explain to them what the ingredients are. They don't need to get into the science of it, and don't make it above their head. Dumb it down to the point where your client is really understanding that. If you talk up here to them, they're not going to relate to it, and they're not going to remember it. So keep it simple. But think in terms of systems and management. Don't overwhelm them. I think that's a key selling point. If you give them too much all at once, first of all, they may not be able to afford that. So think about, what is their budget? What are you able to spend on skincare today? And then figure out what's going to be the best sort of value for money, or in the US we'd say bang for the buck. What are you going to get the most out of these products, and put that small regimen for them together in the beginning, and then you can always augment it. You're better off having a client on a few products that are really working for them than just bombard them with too many products. And I think that's a mistake many clinics tend to make. So here's my plan for the best way to sell skincare in my experience in a clinic is building a relationship. It's not a one-off, it's a long-term relationship, and think of it like a date. So number one, diagnose. evaluate the patient's skin, use a Woods lamp, whatever your technique is. Find out what is their skin type, what conditions are there, what can we actually treat, and how can we treat it, and what's their tolerance for downtime, risk, budget, and what are their key issues and concerns, because sometimes what really bothers them may not be what you see first. How many times do you see a client where all you see is brown? And it doesn't bother them at all. They've got one spot on their cheek and that's what's bothering them. So don't assume that what you're seeing is what's really in their minds. And that's why you need to have a conversation. So it's not just giving them an intake form and having them tick the boxes and check things off. It's giving them an intake form that's thorough but not overwhelming, and then having a conversation about it. And whatever you can do virtually, I live in the digital world, as you can tell, because there's a Mac attached to every part of my body most of the day, including my watch, which I still don't even know how to use. But if Apple makes it, I have to have it. So I think it's really important to try to get more technology in your practice to help you do this more efficiently. And it will save a lot of time, and it will also be easier for the rest of your staff in the clinic to follow up on what you're doing. Then you go to the advising. That's why you're the expert, and here's what I advise. This is what I'm recommending for you, and this is based on what we've just had as a conversation. And all of this needs to be written down somewhere so you remember what has been told to that client by the next time they come back. So if someone else in the clinic is going to see that client and you're not in that day or whatever, or the person who did that intake is now working somewhere else, that there is a record of this conversation and there's consistent treatment for that patient. The last thing we want to do is confuse them, because they're already somewhat nervous coming into a clinic to begin with. So then you're going to recommend what the optimum skincare program is. And I urge you to use the concept of a program rather than a product. And that can include many of the treatments that you offer within your clinic. But it's a regimen. And then, look, if you've got a woman who spends most of her time going on holidays in Dubai and doesn't wear a lot of sunscreen, then you know what you're dealing with. You know that, okay, well, this is probably someone who's not going to be so compliant. So maybe you don't want to go with something that's really going to affect her skin and she isn't going to do well in sun. So you've got to adjust it accordingly. And what are they willing to give up? I used to see clients in South Florida. These women are never going to give up tennis. They're never going to give up gardening, and they live at the beach. So, you probably, deep peels are not going to be the answer for them, except if they, give me 6 weeks where they're not going to do those things. But you know how patients are. They'll say that and they won't do it, and then they'll come back and they've got brown and you've got more work to do to get rid of it. So it really needs to be a conversation and almost like a negotiation. Here's what I want you to do. What are you willing to do and get back? And then figure out what's right for them. But again, it's customized, it's personalized, and I think that's the key differentiator for you as skincare professionals. Then a trial. So figure out, what is this patient able or willing to spend on skincare today? And when I used to do skincare consultations, I would always ask, what brands are you using now? So it would give me kind of a ballpark, like, okay, well, she's maybe buying her makeup at the Lancome counter. I had a sense of how much money she was willing to spend and what she was really going to be using. Because then it'll give you an idea of what she might be willing to spend on changing her regimen up. And another way to go about this is trade-ins. Okay, what are you using now? Well, here's what I'm going to do for you. Let me take that back and let me give you something better for your skin. And sometimes just have them bring in, what skincare regimen are you using now? Let's evaluate it. Like makeup artists do this all the time, and it's really effective. Like you're using the wrong color for your skin tone. Let's get rid of this. Let's bin this and give you something else. Have them bring in their skincare because they don't remember. They'll tell you, how many times do you go through this? What am I using? Oh, I don't remember the name. I got it from the pharmacist, or the chemist sold it to me, and they can't pronounce the name of the product, or they know the name of the brand, but they don't know the product. Have them bring it in. Let them bring it in a bag. Go through every product they have, what's working, what's not working, and then supplement and augment with a better quality brand that's going to do more for their skin. But I would start a patient on just a few treatments. Initiate them into the Neostrata family. You don't have to bombard them with a whole list of products and a very big price tag, because I think that runs the risk of alienating them and making them feel like you're just trying to sell. You can always bring them back. And again, if you're starting a relationship, then the point is you are going to step them up and you are going to bring them back as their needs change and as their tolerance for budget and maybe peeling or redness or anything that they may need to go through to get to their end result of beautiful skin is going to be. And then education. Don't assume that because it says how to use the product on the bottle, they're going to read it and they're going to follow it. They need a detailed instruction sheet, and sometimes it needs to be like simple, not a lot of words and not a lot of science, but like step 1, step 2, step 3. Very simple, and these are easy to do if they're planned. I don't know if Neostrata has forms like this already, but it'd be easy for you to create in clinic. And I used to use these back in the Stone Age when I ran a practice, and they work just as well today, only I would do it virtually today. I would do it on an iPad if I had the option, which is not difficult to do. But this is the way they know how to use the product. You know, twice a day I want you to use this much product. And how many of us actually use the right amount of sunscreen? Probably very few. Most of us in this room maybe, but not most of your patients. They don't realize it. I mean, you know, we live in a country where you still have SPF 8 at the chemist, which I don't even understand why people make it anymore. So really think about what's going to work for them and explain to them how to use it, because they will forget. People have very limited attention span. So some brief selling strategies. Don't oversell. I think, you know, how many times do you see on Yelp or review sites, went into the clinic, so went to see a dermatologist, and all he wanted to do was sell me his creams. Very common complaint. So don't go there. You don't want to be the overseller. You don't have to do that. Think of it as a client education positioning rather than push. It's a low pressure sale, I would call it. I mean, when I ran a clinic, it was a no pressure sale. It was an introduction and then think about it. Go home and think about it. I think samples help a lot. Someone who's resistant Neostrata has beautiful samples. I actually traveled with many of them. Samples are a phenomenal way to introduce a client to a new skincare brand or a new skincare product, and especially some hero products that you'd love them to try. I mean, if you have the ability to give them samples with every product or 2 products, you give them a sample of something else to try, that's another great way to bring them back in. You just don't want them to feel like they're being sold. It's not a hard sell approach. And then think of bundling. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, but repetitive treatments, and I know you have to be careful depending on the market that you're in. However, in America, there are always ways to incentivize patients to increase the average fee per visit for something that's right for them. So series, bundling treatments with products. In countries where it's very difficult to sell skincare legally, doctors are not necessarily permitted to dispense or sell skincare from their clinic. We see a lot of practices bundling the products, the pre and post-op product regimen with the treatment, so it's a global treatment fee. And that actually strategy I think works extremely well. And you may think of that for especially more deeper laser treatments are a perfect example of that, or surgery treatments, certainly facial surgery. And bundle treatments that don't cost you a lot to offer within the clinic. So not something that's done by the doctor, but perhaps something that's done by physician extenders, estheticians, or even just clinic staff, admin staff. I love loyalty programs. I think that that's the way consumers shop today. I know that when Sephora sends me a 20% VIB, very important beauty, which is clever, I am on it. I am going to go immediately to that site, and I'm probably going to wait to get one of those emails to buy something. So if you can come up with a loyalty program that's specific to your clinic, I think that patients will actually appreciate it, because it is the way retailers have trained them to buy products. And market special offers, whether it's by e-blast on your website or new introductions. Mini treatments are another way to get patients in if you want to do a mini facial and let them have a sample or a small size of a product to take home. It's another way to get them in the door. It's so important to have feet in the door to introduce them to what your clinic has to offer to get them to come back. Treatment series, this is the land of buy one, get one, buy 4, get the 5th free. What's the other one? In Boots, it's, what is it? Buy 3, get 2 extras, or something like that. All these kind of bundling treatments really work in clinics as well. I've used every single one of them at one time or another. They're particularly popular with med spas. Give them a bonus treatment with a full size sunscreen, you get a travel size of something else. Think of the value that you're offering them rather than just the price point that you're bringing in. Patient-friendly offers, here we go. A 3 for 2, that's what I was thinking. That's the Boots thing, right? 3 for 2 on Sultan sunscreen, even though Sultan has still SPF 8. Buy 2, get 3. Buy 1, get something else. Get a series of 6, pay for 5, but you don't necessarily have to pay for all of those up front. These work because it's a way to get value for that patient and keep the patient in the practice. And if anyone wants some of these slides, I'm sure Lorna can provide them for you, because I know I'm talking fast. And this works for treatments as well. I'm a big believer in when you're doing filler treatments, once the patient is in the chair and in the office, the cost of acquisition for that client has already been spent. You've already had to market to that client to get the client into the clinic. So if that client really needs, and I think most of us are under-injecting, really needs a second syringe, a third syringe, a little bit of a toxin with the filler, a peel as well, that patient is already there. So, and your time has already been spent. So spending an extra 10, 15, 20 minutes with the patient there, your cost of doing that business is so much lowered. So it's better to be able to give them something maybe at a lower price, and they're going to look better for it. Service plus service offers. Another one is very common. With every syringe of filler, you get one area of toxin for half off. I mean, a lot of clinics will do 30 units of a toxin with another type of treatment. Just these combination therapies, and I think that's actually going to be Dr. Bryden's talk right after is going to talk about combination therapies, and that's such an important way to build your clinic revenue and also make patients look better and keep them coming back for more. And you can do it with facial areas. Like, think about the neck and the hands. I went to have the retinal peel at Dr. Stephanie's beautiful, amazing clinic, and I did my chest because I was afraid that my face would get very red, which it didn't. So do the chest, do the hands, and you can offer that within another treatment. Service and product office. So, there are lots of these combinations that you can come up with depending on what you're offering in your clinic. It works particularly well with body shaping lasers and fractionated lasers. Complementary makeup application is always a good idea if you're doing deep resurfacing. Come up with ways to actually reduce that post-op time so the patient can get back to their lives faster. Retail. This is my pet peeve. You walk into a clinic and merchandising has not been thought through. The testers are dusty. There's no proper area where even in the waiting room, they can't really see the products or go to the products or touch and feel. This has to be a sensory experience. And I think that's why like Sephora is the perfect example. Professional displays and merchandising. What you can't get through aesthetic sources or Neostrata, these are very inexpensive and you can be creative. I like to use little lucite trays, and they're little squares that you use to elevate a product. And make sure that your products are displayed in a way that's attractive and appealing, and patients, oh, what's that? Does anybody use shelf talkers in their clinics? Do you know what that is? A shelf talker is, it can be any form, but it's a little card or a little note that points out one of the products on your shelves. And that's traditional retail selling. Every hair salon does this. I'm sure every department store does it. And it really works in clinics as well. We do those all the time. And they can be whatever form works for you. They don't have to be expensive, they don't have to be fancy, but something you want to highlight. If you have a big clinic and a lot of people working in the clinic, I always like to do what's your favorite product? Sally's favorite product is this is why, and a little quote from her. It's interesting to know what the staff is using. Take your cues from beauty magazines. I like displays, and I like sampling, and I like testers. But if testers are messy or dirty, you're running a clinic and it needs to be clean. So someone needs to be in charge of taking care of the displays. And I mean no dust, no dirt, and it needs to look good. It needs to be even. It needs to look professional and clean and appealing. Marketing is also extremely important for your skincare practice. You need to promote it on your website. Some of these things may be obvious, but I think sometimes they're very overlooked. Develop your own case studies. I can't say this strongly enough. You can't expect Neostrata or any other skincare vendor to do all the work for you. As clinicians, there's nothing that says more about the quality of work that you can offer than case studies. By that I mean before and afters, a patient who came in with acne and you've done some peels on them and now they don't have acne and their skin looks amazing. I mean, this is like the proactive story. Keep that in mind, even if it's staff members, friends, and family, if it isn't actual patients, but case studies are so important. You can always get case studies from some of your vendors, but it's so much better to have your own actual patients that you have done beautiful work on and that are happy. And willing maybe to talk to other patients, especially willing to post it on Instagram because that carries a lot of weight. Mystery shop your own clinic. If you think there's a disconnect at the front desk, that's a good way to find out what it is. And merchandising is important. It needs to look good and it needs to be organized. Shopping bags branded with your clinic name. Tissue paper branded with your clinic name. Think about that. How do patients replenish skincare from your practice? Can they go online? Is there a shopping cart? Can they place an order over the phone? Are you willing to ship products? If you have patients with several homes or you have patients who are traveling from far, you want to keep them. These are products that they need to use forever. So they need to have an ability to replenish product rather than going on Amazon or somewhere else to get it. Product promotions. Any products that have had awards, which a lot of Neostrata products have, or mentions in the media, that's very relevant to your patient when you're selling a Neostrata product. And I'm sure that this information is readily available for you. Any media placements, like before the slideshow that was up when we walked into the room, had all the celebrity endorsements, several celebrities who are big fans. I mean, Elle, doesn't get better than that, was the first picture we saw when we came in the room this morning. And that's really, that's public knowledge, and you're able to share that information with your customers, and that resonates in all markets. This is Kate Somerville's clinic in LA, which is a highly successful celebrity skincare clinic. Note the way she's had all her products displayed. It's attractive. It makes you want to go up and touch and feel. That's the way your clinic should look. Maybe not as expensively designed as this, but you can emulate what you're seeing in other clinics. Keep it neat. And also, do all your staff use Neostrata products? Because if they don't, they should be. When I ran my practice back in the 90s, anyone who wanted to try Neostrata not only was given a deep discount for their friends and family, but was given a product regimen for them, and I wanted them to use it because I wanted them to be able to talk to customers who walked in the door and, oh, what are you using on your skin? And actually have that experience. There is no substitute for that. Those are your brand ambassadors. Your staff are your best brand ambassadors. And again, patient seminars work really well for skincare. There are lots of ways to do this. I'm happy to give you any suggestions. If you want, I'll be here. Brochures, point of sale materials, cards, public relations in your practice. It's great to bring media in. Emma, I believe, is here and can tell you all about that. Bringing media into the clinic, offering them a complimentary treatment and letting them go home with a bag of samples so they can experience what you give to clients within your clinic. Digital advertising works. We can talk about that at length. Social media works, Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to sell products through social media, perhaps the best place to do it is on Pinterest. Pinterest actually sells a lot of products that may not skew as well in Europe as it does in the US. Showing real results. This is what I mean by case studies. These are some Neostrata case studies, but you want to build your own that you've done, and they're out there. They just need some incentivizing to get it done. A robust portfolio of before and after photos with, every different skin types, different age, and different skin conditions and concerns. Patient education. This is Dr. Williams' clinic and her lovely reception, her lovely esthetician, Kristen, who did a retinal peel on me. So I had these pictures taken and I posted them on Instagram. And I boosted it on Instagram so it got more hits and more visibility. And what was lovely is that I got step-by-step instructions. I knew exactly what was going to happen to my skin, how to take care of it, the aftercare products to use. I was religiously instructed not to go in the sun, although that's less of a problem in London than it is in many other places. And I knew exactly, there were no questions. I got the esthetician's card with her cell phone number in case I had a question. And I think giving someone your cell phone number is It is the most caring, and it speaks to who you are as a clinician. Of course, I didn't need to call her because she explained everything perfectly, and I had a flawless experience. But this is the way it should be done. I can't say enough good things. So, key messages. Reward patients who keep coming back. Give them a sneak peek when you're introducing a new product. Your VIPs, your loyal patients that send their family and friends and talk about you in the community. You want to take care of those patients. Those are your most important patients. Most clinics follow an 80-20 rule. 20% of your patients give you 80% of your income. If you can make that a better margin, that's great, but that's actually pretty common in most clinics that I talk to. And make a real commitment to dispense products. Don't do it willy-nilly or, sort of as an afterthought. Make a commitment, because this is a tremendous revenue stream, and think of it really as a service for your patients, which I believe it to be. Take-home messages. Proactive, purposeful, patient. It's not going to happen overnight, but you've got a lot of help in this room to help you get there and be successful. And stand apart, take some risks, do something interesting, do something fun. Make your marketing speak to your brand and protect your brand to stand out. We do a blog every week that has a lot of tips on running practices and clinics. If you're interested, feel free to go on it. And if you have any questions for me, that's how to reach me.